I took the Marlowe course on Udemy, and I've never written code in my life, and I was able to successfully create an escrow contract using Meadow, and it was relatively easy. So I wanted to ask you a question about your target audience for Marlowe.
Yeah,
Um, Haskell is a very in-depth language. It
sure.
requires years of experience. And if you have a small or medium enterprise, you have to hire a Haskell developer in order to build your solutions for your particular company. Or you have to hire someone who's going to give you that assurance that they're going to build something correctly. Is the purpose of Marlowe to circumnavigate that? And would that decrease the costs for businesses trying to implement smart contracts?
I think it's a way in, and I think what we're saying is there's if individuals or small enterprises want to build contracts in this financial domain, then what we're doing is providing you a way in. But I suspect as you grow, you will want to customize things, and at that point, you'll be thinking about writing in Plutus. So I think at that point, you'll probably want some Haskell expertise. But what we hope to do is provide people a smooth way in to understanding. It may be that this is the way in, they start writing Marlowe, and then they can see the value in transitioning to Plutus, and at that point make the investment.
Okay.
But we're hoping there's less of a step, I think. If you go in, you start off at the Marlowe level, and then maybe you think, okay, Marlowe isn't giving me quite what I want, but now's the time for me to make that switch.
Okay.
So it's a smoother curve, I think. It's smoother way into adoption.
Okay.
But also, as I said earlier, I think it's on IOHK's in IOHK's plans to look at DSLs in other areas. I mean, you can imagine you might want to write one for online games, for example. You might want to write one for supply chain management. These are the sorts of things that people are talking about writing on blockchain. Lots of being able to track assets, for example, across the supply chain could be a hugely valuable application area. And I think this is something that it's not IOHK aren't the only people speculating that that's an area to think about. I don't think that's anything new, but you can imagine that one way of helping people to get started in that area is to say, well, look, here's a small DSL that you can use to get started. Maybe you'll want to tailor things eventually and turn that into something like a full-blown Plutus application. But to get started, you can think of doing some supply chain stuff in this way. So that's I think that's how we'd see we don't expect people to necessarily to stick with Marlowe forever, but it's a good starting point.
Okay.
Just as you did you got your introduction using Meadow, which we're now calling the Marlowe Playground, but you will find if you want to start writing bigger contracts, you'll probably transition into writing them as text rather than using blocks, for example. Because you can imagine the block. What Meadow does is it allows you to write Marlowe contracts by plugging together pieces in a jigsaw. And that's a very nice model when it all fits on the screen. But if you're writing something that's much bigger than fits on a single screen, you're probably better moving to text. But that's like a formula in Excel. The text is not so difficult to understand. But I think we see Meadow as a very good starting point there.